First Contact and Misconceptions. Supreme Commander Vexthera of the Galaxian Imperial Fleet stood motionless before the panoramic viewport of the XIS Dominion, her crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the distant starlight. The massive dreadnought led a formation of warships that had just emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. Intelligence had identified this region as the home of a newly spacefaring species that had begun expanding beyond their solar system's boundaries. What the Galaxians found defied their expectations. Instead of the primitive defense platforms their scouts had reported, a fleet of sleek vessels hung in high orbit around the third planet. Their design philosophy appeared almost contradictory. Some sections showed clear signs of recent construction, while others bore the patina of decades of space exposure. Supreme Commander, her sensor officer called out, mandibles clicking with confusion. The human vessels are difficult to analyze. Their energy signatures don't match any known configuration. Vexthera's secondary eyes focused on the tactical display. The human ships were approximately one-third the size of her dreadnought, yet they maintained position with remarkable precision. More curiously, they seemed to be powered by something that her most sophisticated sensors couldn't properly categorize. Interesting, she chittered softly. Open a channel. Let's see how these primitives respond to proper civilization. The main view screen shimmered to life, revealing the human male with silver-streaked dark hair and laugh lines around his eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with minimal ornamentation, barely befitting someone who would dare address the Supreme Commander of the Galaxian Fleet. This is Admiral James Chen of the Terran Defense Force. Welcome to Sol System. His expression was pleasant, but carried a hint of amusement that made Vexthera's crystalline plates bristle. I trust your hyperspace transition was smooth. Those gravitational eddies near Pluto can be tricky if you're not familiar with them. Vexthera's command staff exchanged uncertain glances. The gravitational anomalies near the system's edge were supposed to be undetectable without quantum gravity sensors, technology that should be centuries beyond human capabilities. Admiral Chen, she responded, her translator converting her clicks and whistles into human speech. I am Supreme Commander Vexthera of the Galactic Empire. This system falls under our sphere of expansion. Your species' unauthorized colonization of nearby systems has not gone unnoticed. Unauthorized. Chen's eyebrows rose slightly. Interesting perspective. Though I'm curious about your definition of nearby. Our furthest colony is barely 50 light-years out. Hardly an empire-threatening expansion. The distance is irrelevant. Your technology level indicates you've barely mastered basic spaceflight. The natural order demands that younger species develop under the guidance of their betters. We're here to establish proper oversight of your development. Chen's smile widened fractionally. About that technology assessment. I'm afraid your intelligence might be a bit outdated. Would you like a demonstration? Before Vexthera could respond, her tactical officer burst out in alarm. Supreme Commander, the human vessels, they're gone. Impossible. Check your readings again. But even as she spoke, Vexthera could see with her own eyes that the human fleet had vanished. Not jumped to hyperspace, not cloaked, simply ceased to exist in normal space. Behind us, another officer screamed. There. The entire human fleet had somehow appeared in perfect formation directly astern of the Galaxian Armada, having covered over 300,000 kilometers instantaneously without any sign of conventional movement. A simple trick. Chen's voice came through again, still irritatingly pleasant. We call it quantum position trading. Came up with it while trying to solve metropolitan delivery route optimization, if you can believe it. Amazing how many physics breakthroughs start with trying to make everyday life more convenient. Vexthera's crystalline form vibrated with suppressed emotion. This was impossible. Species were supposed to follow the proper progression of technological development. You didn't go from chemical rockets to quantum teleportation in less than a century. It violated every principle of civilized advancement the Empire had established over millennia. How? She demanded. How did your species advance so quickly? Our records show you achieved your first spaceflight barely 80 cycles ago. Necessity, creativity, and a healthy disregard for assuming anything is impossible, Chen replied. Did you know we cracked artificial gravity because someone wanted to make better ice cream in space? True story. The physics team responsible still gets free Sundays for life. You expect me to believe you've achieved these breakthroughs through accident and whimsy. Not accidents, lateral thinking. Why approach problems the same way everyone else does? Sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected directions. Chen's expression grew more serious. Now, about this oversight you mentioned, I have a counter-proposal. Why don't we discuss cultural exchange instead? You clearly have much to teach us about traditional development paths, and maybe we can share some insights about thinking outside traditional boundaries. Vexthera found herself in an unprecedented situation. Everything about this encounter challenged centuries of imperial doctrine about proper civilization building. These humans hadn't just broken the rules. They seemed completely unaware such rules were supposed to exist. Your proposal has merit, she finally responded, though the Empire does not typically negotiate with younger species. First time for everything, Chen grinned. Tell you what, we recently perfected matter-to-energy cuisine synthesis. How about we host you aboard our flagship? Our chef makes a mean chocolate soufflé. Did you know studying how to keep it from collapsing led to breakthroughs in structural integrity field design? As arrangements were made for a diplomatic meeting, Vexthera found herself wondering if perhaps the Empire's carefully structured approach to advancement had caused them to miss something fundamental about the nature of progress itself. These humans had shown that great leaps forward could come from the most unexpected places, even from the simple desire to make better desserts. She would have to mention this in her report to the Imperial Council, right after she investigated this chocolate soufflé that had apparently helped unlock the secrets of field manipulation. Something told her this first contact was going to change the galaxy forever, whether the Empire was ready or not. The art of human innovation. The diplomatic chamber aboard the TDF Odyssey hummed with an energy Supreme Commander Vexthera had never experienced in her 3 centuries of service. Her crystalline form processed sensory information that defied Imperial classification protocols. The humans had somehow created artificial gravity that felt more natural than planetary gravity, yet their method apparently stemmed from studying frozen desserts. Admiral Chen sat across from her at a table that seemed to be made of ordinary wood, yet subtle ripples in its surface suggested it was actually a form of programmable matter. Between them sat the promised chocolate soufflé, its aroma triggering chemical responses in her sensory receptors that her translator struggled to categorize. The table's a recent innovation, Chen explained, noticing her interest. Our materials science team was trying to develop better classroom furniture for fidgety students. Turned out the same principles that help kids focus could be applied to molecular restructuring. Around them, human and Salaxian engineers huddled in animated discussion groups. Vexthera's chief scientist, Dr. Kuttel, was practically vibrating with excitement as she spoke with Dr. Sarah Martinez, the Odyssey's head of research and development. You're telling me, Kittel chittered, her crystalline appendages flickering with colors of disbelief and wonder, that you discovered quantum tunneling because of a coffee maker malfunction. Well, technically it was working as intended, Martins replied, sipping from a steaming mug. We were trying to figure out why the break room coffee maker produced better results than the lab's supposedly superior model. Turned out it was accidentally creating microscopic quantum tunnels in the water molecules. Changed our whole understanding of particle behavior. Vexthera watched as her most brilliant minds struggled to process the human's approach to scientific advancement. The Empire had spent generations perfecting their understanding of quantum mechanics through careful theoretical modeling. The humans had apparently solved it because they wanted a better cup of stimulant beverage. Admiral, she addressed Chen, her translator struggling to convey her mix of confusion and fascination. I must understand. Your species achieved faster-than-light travel barely 50 years after your first spaceflight. Our records show you hadn't even unified your planet at that point. How is this possible? Chen smiled, cutting into his souffle. Simple necessity, Commander. We knew we wanted to explore, but we also knew we didn't have centuries to spend on careful theoretical development. When you combine urgent need with the freedom to try unconventional approaches, you'd be amazed what solutions present themselves. But there are proper stages of development, Vexthera insisted. Civilizations must master each level of technology before advancing to the next. It's the foundation of stable progress. Says who? Chen's eyes twinkled. Nature doesn't care what order you learn things in. Sometimes solving a complex problem first makes the simpler ones easier to understand. Like how we developed artificial gravity before we fully understood conventional gravity. The practical application gave us insights into the underlying theory. A commotion from one corner drew their attention. A young human engineer was excitedly explaining something to a group of Scilaxian scientists, her hands dancing over a holographic display. You can't just bypass the quantum probability matrix by treating it like a video game. One of the Scilaxian researchers exclaimed, his crystals flashing in agitation. Why not? The engineer, her Namedag Red Zheng, responded cheerfully. If you think of quantum states like player positions in a multiplayer game, the math works out beautifully. We actually developed our first quantum computer by modifying a gaming console. Vexthera's sensory crystals pulsed as she processed this information. Your species seems to have no regard for proper procedural development. You treat fundamental forces of the universe as if they were toys to be played with. Not toys, Chen corrected gently. Tools. And tools work better when you're not afraid to use them in unexpected ways. Take this souffle, for instance. Understanding why it rises led us to develop new theories about vacuum energy. The physicist who made the connection was also an amateur baker. Before Vexthera could respond, her communication crystal chimed with urgent energy. Supreme Commander, her tactical officer's voice carried unmistakable concern. We're detecting multiple unidentified vessels entering the system. Energy signatures matched those of the Drachnid Collective. Chen's expression shifted from relaxed to focused in an instant, though that undertone of amusement never quite disappeared. Ah, the Drachnids. We've had some run-ins with their raiding parties. Fascinating approach to biotechnology, but their social structure could use some work. The Drachnids are a serious threat, Vexthera warned, her crystals darkening with concern. Their organic technology rivals our most advanced systems, and they show no interest in diplomatic solutions. Interesting timing, Chen mused, tapping something on his comm device. We've been working on some new defensive concepts, actually, based on some principles we discovered while trying to develop better weather prediction models. Would you be interested in a practical demonstration? As alert signals began pulsing throughout both fleets, Vexthera found herself wondering if the Empire's methodical approach to advancement had caused them to miss something fundamental about the nature of innovation itself. These humans had shown that revolutionary breakthroughs could come from the most unexpected directions, even from the simple desire to make better food or predict the weather. The Drachnids were about to learn what happened when you interrupted humans during a pleasant diplomatic lunch. Somehow, Vexthera suspected this would be another lesson in humanity's unique approach to problem-solving, one that the galaxy would not soon forget. Crisis point. The Drachnid vessels emerged from the darkness of space like organic nightmares, their biomechanical hulls pulsing with veins of bioluminescent energy. Each ship resembled a massive deep-sea creature, all tentacles and chitinous armor, evolved for the void between stars. Their arrival sent ripples of tension through both the human and Scilaxian fleets. Supreme Commander Vexthera's crystalline form vibrated with battle readiness as she analyzed the tactical display aboard the Odyssey. The Drachnid fleet outnumbered their combined forces 3-1, and their organic technology was notorious for its adaptability. Drachnid collective vessels, Admiral Chen's voice carried across space, still maintaining that hint of casual confidence that Vexthera found both puzzling and oddly reassuring. This system is under joint Terran Salaxian protection. State your intentions. The response came in the form of bioplasma torpedoes launched toward both fleets. The organic projectiles twisted through space like living things, seeking their targets with predatory intelligence. Well, Chen sighed, I suppose that counts as stating their intentions. Dr. Martinez, would you care to demonstrate our new defensive system? With pleasure, Admiral. Martinez's fingers danced across her console. You know how we developed those weather prediction algorithms to help farmers. Turns out the same math works beautifully for predicting organic weapon trajectories. Vexthera watched in amazement as the incoming torpedoes suddenly found themselves caught in invisible patterns of force, their paths twisted and redirected like leaves in a wind that shouldn't exist in space. What are you doing to them? She demanded, her sensory crystals struggling to process the impossible sensor readings. We call it the butterfly effect defense grid, Martinez explained, still focused on her work. Based on chaos theory mathematics we originally developed for agricultural applications. Amazing how similar weather patterns and space combat can be when you look at them the right way. The bioplasma torpedoes, instead of impacting their targets, were caught in complex mathematical waves that caused them to loop and spiral harmlessly into each other, creating a gorgeous display of light and energy that looked almost like a planned fireworks show. The Drachnid commander's image appeared on their view screen, his biotechnological implants pulsing with fury. Impossible. Our weapons are self-guiding. They cannot be deflected by simple energy fields. Oh, we're not deflecting them, Chen replied cheerfully. We're just introducing carefully calculated butterfly effects into their guidance systems. Did you know that the beating of a butterfly's wings in Brazil can cause a tornado in Texas? Fascinating principle. Works even better in space. Before the Drachnid could respond, Chen nodded to his weapons officer. Speaking of weather patterns, Lisa, why don't you show them what we learned from studying lightning storms? The human fleet suddenly generated what appeared to be miniature thunderclouds in space, a phenomenon that should have been impossible in vacuum. Before anyone could process this impossibility, bolts of energy that resembled lightning, but definitely weren't natural electricity, arced between the clouds, creating a web of power that encased the Drachnid ships. Fun fact. Chen commented as the Drachnid vessels found themselves unable to move, their organic technology confused by signals that mimicked natural phenomena but carried artificial precision. We discovered this technique while trying to protect our orbital farms from solar storms. Turns out the same principles that shield tomatoes from cosmic radiation work remarkably well for containing hostile bioships. Vexthera's tactical officer was practically vibrating with excitement as he analyzed the readings. Supreme Commander, they're using quantum-entangled plasma channels to generate artificial weather patterns in space. The mathematical complexity required to maintain such a system is about the same as what we use to optimize our hydroponic space. Martinez finished for him. Keeping plants happy in space is surprisingly complicated. Really makes you think outside the box. The Drachnid commander's fury was palpable even through the view screen. You cannot contain us with farming techniques. We are the Drachnid Collective. Our organic technology is the pinnacle of biological evolution. About that, Chen interjected. Dr. Martinez, didn't you mention something about their bioships having similar cellular structures to some of our more problematic agricultural pests? Martinez nodded, a mischievous glint in her eye. Now that you mention it, yes. Their neural pathways are remarkably similar to those of the bacteria that kept trying to infect our orbital wheat fields. Remember that probiotic solution we developed? You wouldn't dare, the Drachnid commander growled, his implants flashing with alarm as he realized what they were suggesting. Think of it as a very large-scale application of organic pest control, Chen offered diplomatically. Non-lethal, of course. Just a little something to encourage your ships to take a nice, long nap. Vexthera watched in stunned silence as the human fleet released clouds of what appeared to be ordinary agricultural probiotic spray. The moment these clouds touched the Drachnid vessels, the mighty bioships began to power down, their organic components falling into a state resembling hibernation. "Don't worry," Martins assured the increasingly panicked Drachnid commander. "They'll wake up in about 6 hours. Plenty of time for us to have a civilized discussion about territorial boundaries and peaceful coexistence. In the meantime, would anyone like to see our hydroponics bay? We just perfected a new strain of space tomatoes that I think demonstrates some fascinating principles about adaptive biology." As the Drachnid fleet drifted harmlessly in space, disabled by what amounted to enhanced agricultural products, Vexthera found herself reevaluating everything she thought she knew about technological advancement. The humans hadn't just found new ways to wage war. They'd found ways to repurpose peacetime innovations into effective defensive measures. "Admiral," she said finally, "I believe the Empire's Science Council would be very interested in learning more about your agricultural research programs." Chen's eyes twinkled. "Wait until you see what we did with coffee plants in zero gravity. The caffeine content alone rewrote half our understanding of molecular biology." Alliance and understanding. The aftermath of the Drachnid encounter transformed the diplomatic chamber of the Odyssey into something resembling a combination of a scientific conference and an enthusiastic cultural exchange. Salaxian scientists huddled with human engineers, their crystalline forms shimmering with excitement as they compared methodologies and discoveries. Supreme Commander Vexthera found herself engaged in a fascinating discussion with Admiral Chen and Dr. Martinez about the possibility of combining Salaxian systematic research with human creative innovation. The sleeping Drachnid fleet provided a backdrop to their conversation, their bioships occasionally twitching like dreaming creatures. "Your probiotic defense system is remarkable," Tal announced, her crystals pulsing with scholarly excitement. "But imagine combining it with our quantum harmonics technology. We could create a targeted delivery system that could revolutionize both agricultural protection and defensive capabilities." Martinez finished, already sketching calculations on her tablet. "The same principles could help us develop better methods for terraforming hostile environments." Chen smiled as he watched the collaboration unfold. "You know, Commander, I think we've all been asking the wrong question. It's not about whether development should be structured or creative. It's about finding the balance between both approaches." Vexthera's form shifted in a gesture of thoughtful agreement. "Perhaps the Empire's insistence on rigid advancement protocols has limited our potential. Your species' achievements suggest that innovation need not follow a predetermined path. Look at what we've already accomplished in just a few hours." Chen gestured to where human and Salaxian engineers were excitedly discussing the possibility of combining their technologies. "Your people's methodical research provides the foundation that our creative leaps need for stability." A junior human engineer named Rodriguez was demonstrating their quantum weather control system to a group of fascinated Salaxian scientists. "The trick is to think of space like an ocean," she explained. "We actually based part of the control system on how dolphins navigate using echolocation. But that's biological sonar, not quantum mechanics," a Salaxian researcher protested, his crystals flickering with confusion. "Only if you limit yourself to thinking about them as separate things," Rodriguez replied. "Nature doesn't care about our categories. Sometimes the best solutions come from crossing boundaries we thought were fixed." Meanwhile, Salaxian engineers were helping their human counterparts refine the efficiency of their systems. The Empire's centuries of methodical research were finding new applications in human technology, while human creativity was opening new possibilities for Salaxian science. "Admiral," Vexthera's tactical officer called out, "the Drachnid ships are showing signs of awakening." "Perfect timing," Chen nodded. "Dr. Martinez, shall we show our guests what happens when we combine Salaxian quantum harmonics with our chaos theory mathematics?" The resulting demonstration left even the Drachnid commander speechless. Human unpredictability merged with Selaxian precision created defense systems that adapted faster than the bioship's organic technology could evolve to counter them. It was like watching a chess master who occasionally chose to dance across the board instead of following traditional moves. Impossible, the Drachnid commander muttered, his biotechnology implants pulsing with disbelief. You cannot simply combine technologies like this. Why not? Chen asked genuinely. The universe doesn't care about our preconceptions. It responds to what works, regardless of whether we think it should be possible. The Drachnid fleet, faced with defenses that evolved as quickly as their own organic technology and struck with the precision of Selaxian quantum science, chose the better part of valor and retreated from the system. Their commander's final transmission carried a tone of bewildered respect. In the hours that followed, human and Selaxian crews continued their exchange of ideas. Vexthera watched as her people's rigid scientific protocols were infused with human creativity, while human innovation gained new depth from Selaxian systematic research. You know, Chen mused, sharing another of those remarkable soufflés with Vexthera. This could change everything. Not just technology, but how species interact across the galaxy. Imagine what we could achieve if we all stopped assuming there's only one right way to advance. A young Selaxian scientist rushed up to their table, crystals practically strobing with excitement. Supreme Commander, the humans showed us their coffee plants, and we believe we've discovered an entirely new approach to quantum energy extraction. It involves the way the plants process solar radiation in zero gravity and... Let me guess, Vexthera interrupted, her translator struggling to convey her amusement. It completely violates traditional energy development protocols. Oh, completely. The scientist agreed happily. But it works better than anything we've developed in the last century, and it's completely sustainable. As she watched her people embrace new ways of thinking, Vexthera realized that this encounter had changed far more than just the balance of power in this sector of space. The Empire had always believed that progress required control, that advancement had to follow established patterns. These humans had shown them that true progress often came from allowing yourself to question everything you thought you knew. Sometimes, the most significant breakthroughs came not from following the rules, but from asking why those rules existed in the first place. A new era, 6 months after the first contact between humans and the Galaxian Empire. The Sol system had become a hub of interstellar innovation. The Joint Human-Selaxian Research Institute occupied a massive space station in Earth orbit, its crystalline and metal architecture reflecting both species' design philosophies. Inside, breakthroughs occurred almost daily as structured methodology merged with creative inspiration. Supreme Commander Vexthera, now serving as the Empire's ambassador to Earth, stood beside Admiral Chen in the station's observation dome. Below them, Earth shone like a blue jewel, while various ships of both species maneuvered through nearby space, many testing new technologies that would have been considered impossible less than a year ago. The Imperial Council's latest report just arrived, Vexthera said, her crystalline form shimmering with satisfaction. Our implementation of human-inspired innovation protocols has increased technological development efficiency by 300% across the Empire. Chen smiled as he watched a test vessel demonstrate a new hybrid dry system. And our engineers are still trying to wrap their heads around some of your quantum mechanics theorems. Though I hear Dr. Martinez's team finally cracked the underlying principles while they were trying to make quantum-enhanced pizza delivery more efficient. The vessel they were watching suddenly disappeared in a flash of light, reappearing instantly at the edge of the solar system. The new drive combined Selaxian precision with human creativity, capable of calculating billion light-year jumps with perfect accuracy while drawing inspiration from the way bees navigated between flowers. The Drachnids have been unusually quiet lately, Vexthera observed. Our latest intelligence suggests they're completely revising their approach to bioship development. Apparently, being defeated by agricultural technology was something of a wake-up call. Speaking of agriculture, Chen replied, You might be interested in our latest project. We've combined your crystalline computing technology with our chaos theory mathematics to create a new form of predictive farming. Early results suggest we could terraform Mars in months instead of centuries. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Catal and Dr. Martinez, both practically bubbling with excitement. Catal's crystals were flashing in patterns that indicated major discovery breakthrough. Ambassador, Admiral, Martinez began, barely containing her enthusiasm. We've done it. The coffee plant quantum energy experiment. We finally figured out why it was producing those anomalous readings. It turns out, Catal continued, her translator struggling to keep up with her excited chittering, that when you apply Galaxian quantum harmonics to the way human plants process caffeine, you create a cascade effect that essentially lets us tap into zero-point energy through biological processes. Martinez finished. We're calling it bio-quantum fusion. Clean, unlimited energy production using nothing but coffee plants and crystal matrices. Chen raised an eyebrow. You've solved the galaxy's energy crisis. With coffee? Well, the principles should work with any biological system, Catal explained. But coffee plants seem to have exactly the right molecular structure to catalyze the reaction. Something about the way humans have selectively bred them over centuries for caffeine content accidentally created the perfect quantum energy converter. Vexthera's form rippled with amusement. The Imperial Science Council will have difficulty processing the fact that one of the greatest scientific breakthroughs in our history came from a human beverage plant. That's rather the point, isn't it? Chen mused. The biggest discoveries often come from places you'd least expect. It's not about following a predetermined path. It's about being open to possibilities. The station's alert system suddenly chimed, indicating an incoming transmission. A holographic display materialized, showing a massive fleet emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. But instead of panic, the station's crew reacted with interest. Ah, Chen nodded. That would be the Centaurian Confederation's diplomatic fleet. They've been quite eager to discuss cultural exchange since word of our partnership spread. The Drachnids weren't the only ones who took notice of our little demonstration. Vexthera agreed. We've received inquiries from 17 different civilizations about establishing similar cooperative ventures. They watched as the Centaurian fleet was guided into orbit by ships of both human and Galaxian design. Each vessel represented a perfect blend of both species' technologies, practical innovation guided by methodical understanding. You know, Chen said thoughtfully, when I joined the Defense Force, I never imagined first contact would lead to all this. I thought we'd be fighting for our independence, proving humanity's worth through conflict. Instead, Vexthera responded, you proved it through coffee plants and souffles, through thinking differently about problems we thought we'd solved centuries ago. The Empire came expecting to find primitives needing guidance. We found teachers instead. Teachers and students both, Chen corrected. Your people's knowledge gave our creativity a foundation. We just helped you see that foundation as a launching pad rather than a cage. Below them, Earth continued its eternal dance around the sun, now surrounded by the combined achievements of two civilizations that had found strength in their differences. The galaxy was changing, not through conquest or competition, but through the simple recognition that progress didn't have to follow a single path. In the research labs, human and Galaxian scientists continued their work, each breakthrough leading to new questions, each solution opening doors to possibilities neither species had imagined alone. And somewhere in the station's botanical section, carefully tended coffee plants absorbed sunlight through crystalline windows, their quantum-enhanced photosynthesis quietly rewriting the laws of physics while they went about their ancient task of providing humanity's favorite morning beverage. The future, it seemed, would be written not by those who followed the rules, but by those who dared to question why the rules existed in the first place. And perhaps that was the greatest discovery of all.